Hello. So, as we all know, Japan got Pokebank now, and the rest of us are waiting for it. But with Japan getting Pokebank, that allows us to see a few things. First off, obviously, it lets us see a couple of what Pokemon look like in their 3D images on, Pokemon X and Y, which is very, very exciting. But this really isn't, being like, oh, praise Pokebank thing. No, this is more of a myth and truths about Pokemon Bank. Okay, so here we'll go with an absolute truth. The absolute truth is that Pokebank does have 100 boxes that can store 3,000 Pokemon. That is an absolute truth. So therefore, you can store 3,000 Pokemon, bring them into your system, put them back into Pokebank, and all that good stuff. And I mean, I don't think, as far as I know, you can't really transfer back to previous gens, kind of like, how it's been since, third to fourth gen, where you can transfer back or any of that good stuff. Yeah, so, basically, obviously, yeah, you can obviously transfer back and forth and all that good stuff. Uh, here's something interesting though that's been kind of circulating on the Facebooks because of Pokemon groups. So there is this picture that is actually shown on the screen right now that has a Japanese Totodile. Conveniently, the level and everything is blocked out. And then you see this guy, Paul Baltazar, saying, I got Totodile, I'm so happy, I hatched my first one. Does a newborn get a Pentagon? And he says no, and I'm assuming that's the picture he's showing. Although, really, I don't think it would be a Japanese baby, so he could just be lying right there, or just not even notice the Pentagon, or not even know what the Pentagon is. And basically, we see in the lovely comments, ooh, even eggs from hacks don't get it, have it. Nintendo gets smart cookie. This is perfect. This feels blah 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 blah. Okay, all that good stuff. And at the bottom it says, this is how Game Freak planned to stop hacked Pokemon. If you breed with a hacked Mon, it likes the Pentagon too. All hail the new system. Okay, first of all, as you can tell on the very, very bottom, there's no sources, obviously, to back this up, saying that this is how Game Freak planned to stop hacked Pokemon. What Nintendo said is that Pokemon Bank will not transfer hacked Pokemon. That is more or less true, okay? If you Pokegen correctly, then it looks like a legit Pokemon, therefore the game recognizes it is a legit Pokemon, and the X and Y would recognize it's a legit Pokemon to a T. If you Pokegen perfectly, then it's basically a legit Pokemon that just, has 31 IVs, the EVs you want, and the moves you want. Like you had spent all this time, breeding and doing all this stuff. And, yeah, basically, then you see a Chimchar, in a different picture, kind of in this little montage of pictures that's saying that has a Pentagon. Conveniently, this one does show level 1, meaning it is bred, or, well, I mean, it has a Pentagon, so it obviously is bred, and I'll show you why that this is an obvious truth to begin with. So, and then we have the little, notice how the Chimchar has the Pentagon, but the Totodile does not. Again, conveniently, Totodile does not have a level. Okay, so it's not saying where it's from, and it's not saying if this guy, and I mean, obviously this thing was not made in Unova, so I imagine the Totodile's actual level's like 4 or 5 or something, or the Japanese kid, brought over an egged a Totodile from an egg. He bred a Totodile and brought it over from, Pokebank. So, obviously just because there's no level in any of that, and the fact that it still says Japan, the fact that it still says Japan is basically the guy took a screenshot, didn't show the level, and intended to troll everyone or something, or just was like, oh, this is obviously hacked because it does not have this Pentagon that this Chimchar does, blah, 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 blah. Okay, first of all, I'm going to stop talking. Well, I'm not going to stop talking. I'm going to keep talking, but there should be a video that popped up, and it's a very short video, but as you can see, I went through my party at the time that I'm training up the Greninja, basically, is what the case is, and, I mean, as you can see, all my Pokemon have the Pentagon because they're from the Kalos region, which debuffs this myth of saying that hacked Pokemon's offspring will not have the Pentagon. The Pentagon signifies that you have had that Pokemon either made in the Kalos region, caught in the Kalos region. Basically, it's just a symbol that says this is from the Kalos region. This is not transferred from Pokebank. This is from the Kalos region, which also brings up the point of Pokemon Wi-Fi tournaments. So the first Wi-Fi tournament, I believe Nintendo announced that they would only take Pokemon that had the Pentagon. That is basically saying that they want everything to be bred the in the Kalos region for the first tournament, just so people can't, like abuse the fact that you can get perfectly legit seeming Pokegen Pokemon into the actual game, and just wreck face because you can abuse the fact that Pokegen Pokemon do in fact pass through Pokebank and there's no consequence. They can still be used online, by the way. They can't be used in official rating at this point because, again, Nintendo is doing kind of, what they did. Let's think about it, guys. Come on. Nintendo back in 5th gen, when 5th gen only had 5th gen Pokemon in it to start out with, they were like, we're doing this Wi-Fi tournament, you can only use Pokemon that are in the Unova decks, because all the Pokemon in the Unova decks were native to Unova. So, therefore, there was no difference here, like, from a 4th gen to a 5th gen, because they only had Pokemon only exclusively in the Unova decks. So, therefore, there was no issue. There was no issue with, like, Pentagons and not Pentagons and all that, because it was just the Unova Pokemon that were exclusive to Black and White anyway. So they didn't really have to do anything to worry about it. Now, this time, they want you to breed in the Kalos region, because I imagine they're doing the same thing, be like the Kalos regional or something like that, to where it's going to recognize the Pentagon, meaning that a lot of legendaries are not going to be available, and the ones that are available will probably be, I don't know, the legendary bird that you can capture in the actual game. That's probably, I hate to say it, but that's probably the only legendary that there will be. And as such, that's not saying that all Wi-Fi Nintendo tournaments will have the same format. Now, they're probably doing it this first time because in 5th gen they did it that way. So they're thinking, well, in 6th gen, let's try and make it, Pokemon that were bred or met in the Kalos region. So it's not set in stone that the Pentagon Pokemon will not work over rating battles. They probably will be like, okay, go ahead, use the non-Pentagon Pokemon, which will be like Terrakion and all that good stuff, unless, they put in an event or give you Terrakion and all this stuff. They're not going to limit completely the amount of Pokemon you can use. So therefore, saying that hacked Pokemon can't go online is stupid. No. In fact, we have a picture that someone kindly uploaded to the Facebooks that shows that the Pokemon they got from Pokebank are definitely online. And, fortunately, he uploaded it and just showed that. And it was all good. And there was much rejoicing. So, I hope this helped debunk a few Pokebank myths and truths. Obviously, the truth, there will be, and I'm going to go ahead and cover it in the ending. The truth, again, there will be 100 boxes that can hold 30 Pokemon each, meaning you can store a total of 3,000 Pokemon in a Pokebank at a time. Now, whether the Pokebank is linked with your account or something, the rest of us all have to figure out. Japan already knows and all that. So Japan's all good, and, who knows, maybe you can use it on different 3DS, which would, if you have multiple 3DSs, oh, boo, you're paying more. You're paying more than $5 a year for a Pokebank. Again. Also, fact, $5 Pokebank, and you will have a free trial from January to February. It ends January 31st, basically, is when the free trial. They basically want you to activate it right away so you can transfer all the Pokemon you want to. and then buy into the storage system and, pay for $5. It's not a big deal. It's only $5. I don't personally see $5 a year hurting me in some foreseen way. I guess it always could, but the chances of that happening are very unlikely. Alright, second of all, yes, Pokegen Pokemon can pass through Pokebank, but only if they are perfectly, perfectly Pokegen to where it's legit. It's completely, they look legit. The game cannot tell the difference, okay? The Pentagon signifies that a Pokemon is hacked or not is a total myth. As I showed you in my little, kind of shaky video because I was trying to shoot the bottom screen and hold a webcam at the same time, and I had just worked, so I was tired and all that good stuff. But as I showed you, the Pokemon in my party right now that I have in my party are from Kalos, and that's all the Pentagon means, is that it's from Kalos. The Pentagon Pokemon will be the only ones that are allowed to participate in Wi-Fi tournaments. This is true for the first one. However, it has not been proven to be true for the other ones, because again, remember, the second Wi-Fi tournament that Nintendo held for 5th Gen, you were allowed to use all the national decks basically, with some exceptions that are normally banned in official tournaments anyway. And lastly, Pokebank costs $5. Yes, that is true. That is completely true. And you only have to part $5. So, guys, don't be stingy if you plan on transferring the older gen Pokemon to your 6th gen. Just buy the Pokebank. If you even use it for 1 year, it's worth its weight in gold because you get to store Pokemon there, you get to brain them in X and Y, and it's completely fine. So, guys, buy the Pokebank. Don't worry about the fact that Pokemon are Pentagon or not Pentagon. And, oh, I guess I forgot to mention that they can be used on online battles, just not raiding battles at the moment. But that is going to be all. Hope you guys have enjoyed this Pokebank Myths and Truths series. So, bye.